This play is about what we remember.
And this play is about the sea.
Time has been spent here.
You can't get it back.
You exchanged it for the view.
The smell.
The horizon.
The feeling of your legs in the water.
The chance to scream at the waves.
A towel on the sand.
A book to read.
Stillness.
Movement.
A version of calm.
Go to a place you imagine.
Or a place that's real.
Take a breath.
Let it take
Your breath.
the holy duality of this place.
Chaos.
Peace.
Sanctuary.
Uncertainty.
We fear the unknown.
But it's exactly what we want.
I remember rock pooling all the time, always having scuff feet, always just being muddy, and never cold though, which is funny because it was always cold, but I never felt cold. I was too excited, I think. And I remember rock pooling and just being so amazed by these little worlds inside these tiny, tiny areas of rock. You know, the different fish or crabs or, you know, the seaweed. Oh, it was amazing. My granddad made me a bucket, and I remember going into a really murky little rock pool and just sloshing the bucket straight in there and coming up and, you know, not seeing anything, but thinking, I'll take it back in. I remember jumping over the little rock pools with it. It was very heavy. And took it back into my granddad's house, and then the water settled and this amazingly beautiful, massive pink shrimp. I guess it's a shrimp. I don't know the difference between a shrimp and a prawn. It was enormous. And I remember I was so excited. I couldn't believe that this incredible creature had been found in this tiny little rock pool. And I remember going around to my mum, my sister, my granddad, all the neighbours. There was only about 4 houses on the row. And I went round to everyone, knocked on, showed them all. And I was just so amazed at what the sea could give me. It was like the biggest gift ever. And I always remember that. That's one of my most vivid memories of the sea. And I also remember putting it back. And I think that was probably when I also had the notion of, you know, we aren't the only ones here. And I think sometimes as humans we don't forget that, but we like to think that we're superior, and we are not. And I think that was a really great experience for me as a young child, to see this creature that was just so large and amazing, and then taking it back and realising that, yes, this is your home and we need to respect that. My granddad was a fisherman, and we went out on his boat all the time. And I loved it. I think it's given me perspective massively. I think being by the sea makes you realise just how small you are. And not in a bad way, not in a diminishing way, but in a really grounding way. I think it really helps you to understand just how big this world is and how small a part you are. And that actually, a lot of the time, you know, you can't control a lot of things. The control you have is very, very little, and what you can control is also very little. So I feel like the sea takes that responsibility from you when you stand in front of it and you listen to the sound of the waves and you smell the salty air, and it just gives you that wonderful grounding. I feel very privileged to look at the sea in the way I do, that it's something that's of a comfort to me. And I love the sea so much. And for some people, it isn't that way. So that's what I feel the sea has given me, a sense of perspective and grounding and understanding. I think you just need to go and sit by the sea. It's just there. The sea is always there, and that is a certainty. And I feel very, very grateful for that.
This play is about the things we took to the beach.
A book.
My sea shoes.
Sun cream.
A towel.
A portable, solar-powered phone charger.
A camping chair.
My husband.
A camera.
3 bottles of water.
This play is also about the things we left behind.
A bendy top cat toy.
A pink, glittery jelly shoe.
A rubber ball.
A bit of my sister's toe.
My sister's flowery shorts.
A Canon camera with all my photos.
Nothing.
Nothing. I've never left anything behind.
Okay, next question.
What's your earliest or strongest memory of the sea?
Going on snails. Great Yarmouth again.
Mine is going to Wales.
It's snails versus whales. One of my earliest memories being about 4, must have been about 3 or 4. My parents took us on this trip to the Norfolk Broads.
Yeah.
And there was loads. I remember there was loads of people that were on 2 really big barge boats. We were going up and down the Norfolk Broads, and people... I vaguely remember people jumping off from one boat to another boat, and this would have been sort of late 70s. And it was really, 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 really fun. I think 1 or 2 of my aunts were on that trip. And I remember going to Great Yarmouth and going on the snails and going on the Neptune ride, because that was there as well. These are still here. You know, the snail ride. You can't go to Great Yarmouth without going on the snail ride. It's about 70 years old. You know, people take their grandkids on this ride from like when they were kids, and you know, it's still there and it's still going. So definitely the snails, and going on the pleasure beach and going under the big... There used to be a big entranceway when you got to the pleasure beach, and it's not there anymore. And I remember the ghost train had this really scary bloke with a big thing, like he was going to hit you, and they were all going, let's go on the ghost train. I was like, no, that thing's going to get... That's how small that was.
Yeah.
So yeah, earliest memories of the sea, probably going on the snails. What about you? You said Wales, didn't you?
Wales, yeah.
What do you remember about Wales, though?
Not much.
Oh, there wasn't much there, was there?
No, not that I can remember much.
No. It's right out in the middle of nowhere where we went.
Yeah.
We got Grandad to take us.
I thought it was Auntie Sheila.
No, it was Grandad. Either that or Auntie Sheila took us there and Grandad came and got us.
Yeah.
Something like that. It was just before you started school.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I remember the Olympics being on.
Oh, yeah, and me falling asleep during it. Or I'd already gone to bed.
Yeah. Quiet times, but...
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you guys had a kite, didn't you?
Yeah, but it would not work. Would not work to save the life of it.
But, yeah, that was good fun. Something the sea has given me. The sea gives me... Being near the sea gives me a sense of who I am. Inner peace. A bit of wholeness. I'll be honest, I think the most miserable time I've had is living really inland.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, the beach is kind of cold. That's why I don't like going down there.
I love going to the beach.
No matter what weather, when we go down to the beach, I've only got one jumper at the moment because it's the only one I have at the moment.
Yeah, but when I was a kid, we used to go up to see my auntie at the time. She used to live near the Pleasure Beach, and my dad used to take us. We used to go all the way up the sand dunes, all the way up to the Britannia Pier, and back again in the cold weather on the beach with just all fishermen around. No amusements, no nothing. We used to love it. Used to go up there with all my cousins.
I can't stand the cold. I can't stand if it's too cold, or I can't stand if it's too warm.
It's fine.
The temperature needs to be just right, or I'm either going to boil or I'm going to freeze, not bake.
You can hardly say that you freeze down here.
I do. The winter, the summer.
It's not that cold.
The spring.
It's not as cold as it was when I was young.
I freeze all year round. My hands are always cold.
Oh, dear.
Anyway.
Never mind.
We say we feel so calm by the sea.
But you'd be hard-pressed to find anything more unruly.
Anything more perfectly ungoverned in its regular bashing.
And crashing of the land.
The oppressive noise of beauty and danger.
Like it wants to get us.
Reach us.
Break us apart.
Or put us back together.
And when we say,
Oh, I feel so calm by the sea.
The sea is absolutely howling with laughter, because that was never its intention.
but of course the sea doesn't actually laugh.
Don't be stupid.
Why do humans feel the need to personify everything?
What I'm trying to say is that you won't stop the sea.
Eventually.
Ultimately,
You can never stop the sea.
I grew up by the sea. And the first thing that I did think of was, it made me feel really nostalgic for a long ago time when I was young and we would spend long, long, long summer holidays that stretched on to infinity. We would spend them on the beach. Stony, pebbly, sometimes freezing cold, South Coast beach. And my best friend and I would run and play in the sea, on the beach, in the land kind of behind the beach, in a time when children and their parents were, I suppose, that elastic that holds them together was longer than it currently is. It's sort of... Certainly, my friend and I would go off far further and far longer than I would be happy to let my little boy do now. And those were the days of possibility. And they were the days that were as limitless as the view out to the horizon, I suppose. The sea, I think of the sea as a wild and untamable beast, almost certainly female. Although, I don't know why, for me, the sea is female. The sea is a secret keeper, and a very safe place to hide your secrets, also your moods, your thoughts that you're not able to share with anyone. I love to think of the way that all of the seas of the world are joined together so that when I stand on my little bit of pebbly beach down here in Hastings, it feels like I have a direct point of contact across the water to my friends who live all over the globe. It's something that brings us together, despite it actually being the thing that keeps us apart. I grew up living very near to Beachy Head Lighthouse, and it's impossible to get that thought out of my mind. I think of the lighthouse and of the cliffs and of the souls that have been lost and whose stories will remain with the sea forever. I don't think the sea has really taken anything away except maybe the kind of invisible walls around me. I always feel like when I'm on the beach or looking at the sea, the world is limitless and there are no boundaries. And it just feels wide, wide, wide. And it's a great place to let go of everything else that can make you feel boxed in, I suppose. So maybe it's taken away my box.
The moon has a pull on the sea.
The moon controls the sea.
Two seemingly unconnected forces, and yet their influence on each other is integral.
Exact.
Life-giving.
A drag.
An unavoidable ache to be moving in one direction or the other, to be in constant shift and flux.
Because the tide comes in and the tide goes out.
But each droplet of water has been replaced.
Just like human cells regenerate.
And the timbre of the sea's voice changes when it flows across pebbles.
Sand.
Shingle.
Mud.
This play is made up of all the stories we rehearsed.
We rehearse this, but it could be different every time.
What's the point in pretending this has never happened before?
Because the tide comes in and the tide goes out.
And the only thing we can do is embrace the erosion.
There is a very long, complicated, back and forth, bit of a romance story connected with the sea, but I am not one for romance, so I'm going to try and tell it without too much detail. There was somebody who I had a very strong connection with. I was going through a bit of a turbulent time in my life. My feelings were such for this person that I had a boyfriend of the time, and it was linked to many other things. I was only 21 at that time, so when I started to feel strongly for this other person, I decided that, amongst other things, meant that I wasn't meant to be with the person that I was with, so I left. I broke up with my boyfriend. So I was kind of grieving that a bit. And I had my granddad. My granddad had just passed away and things. So it was a very turbulent time. And this guy that I had a connection with, at the time, he was engaged. He was with someone. And we were friends. We were completely friends. Nothing ever happened. We did admit our feelings for each other, but there was never anything untoward that happened physically between us. But we were both in really difficult places and both really, really angry about a few things. Anyway, he asked me one day, I said, I just didn't know what to do with all these feelings I had. And I said, I just want to shout. I just want to shout at someone. But why should I shout at someone? And he said, well, shout at me. And I said, I don't want to shout at you. And then he said, well, why don't we go and shout at the ocean? And I was like, that's stupid. And he was like, no, really. If you want to, I would do that with you. And so there was one day after a rehearsal for a show that we were in, we went and met at the beachfront. I think it was about 11 o'clock at night. And we first of all had a little walk along the front and talked about our frustrations in life, our frustrations with where we were at, what we were struggling with. And then we absolutely screamed our lungs out at the ocean. And it was weird, but it was great. And it was like something out of a movie. And it was one of those things that looking back, I'm like, oh, it was so cheesy. But it was a really real, reflective moment and a thing I had. A real connection I had with someone, despite the fact that it was complicated, despite the fact that we maybe emotionally crossed some lines. But I did my best to keep clean in that situation. I did not want to get involved with someone who clearly had a lot going on in life. He was only 23 and he was getting married. And he shouldn't have been getting married, in my opinion. But, whatever. People live different lives. Anyway, but we screamed at the ocean. And the crash of the waves came back at us. And it was very cleansing. Although I had a sore throat after. It was very over-dramatic. But I think at the time, when I think about times in my life that were so real that they were almost not real, that was one of them. And the sea in that was just this noise, this crashing. When we both shouted, there was nothing but noise coming back at us. I try to not let it link to that connection I had with him, but rather a moment that I needed in my life to have that release. Thankfully, he is no longer anywhere near my life, but I like to think that that was something for me in that time of need, rather than connected with him. But the ocean was something that was very, very strong in that moment. And that stayed with me. So, that's enough babbling.
The sea is also a place where stories end.
Where the narrative stops, or floats out of reach.
Endings are never as romantic as we like to think.
They won't be clean.
They won't be nice.
Witnessed perhaps only by the cliff edge, the ocean floor.
Such distinct boundaries that cannot intervene.
There are parts of the coastline that are crumbling.
The sea is claiming back the land.
It's violent, friendly arms drawing us in.
Houses and shops have gone. And soon the church will go. And the graveyards.
Coffins will stick out of the cliff edge like sore thumbs.
How easily things can disappear.
Land,
People.
Bodies.
Ashes.
Beautiful dust, billowing and glittering in the air, settling on the water.
No longer looking out to sea, but part of it now.
And I swear, sometimes I hear voices, like sonar. They say,
I'm still here. Here in the deep, unstable unknown.
Here, where there is an absence of memory, endless undulations, breathing, breath.
Let it. Take your breath.
if there's one thing I've learned, it's that the sea gives.
And the sea takes away.
Deep blue sea, honey, deep blue sea. Deep blue sea, honey, deep blue sea. Deep blue sea, honey, deep blue sea. Stole my heart, took it down into the deep blue sea. Wrap him up in a silken shroud. Wrap him up in a silken shroud. Wrap him up in a silken shroud. Stole my heart, took it down into the deep blue sea. Lower him down on a golden chain. Lower him down on a golden chain. Lower him down on a golden chain. Stole my heart, took it down into the me.